So before you jump into the next project, project number 3, I want us to pause right here and let's do a little bit of brainstorming. How else can you use input boxes and message boxes to get and inform users within your macros? Think about that for a moment. What do you do inside of Excel, perhaps on a daily basis, where you have to input data into an Excel document? How could you use an input box to help automate some of that experience? Gather information from the user, ourselves or others, and then feed that into a macro, feed that into a procedure, and then perhaps build some logic that checks the value and that performs its appropriate tasks based on that value. That's an input box. Supply some information, type in a number or some text, and that gets into a variable that's being stored inside the procedure. How could you use a message box? How could you, or why would you want to be able to prompt the user? What type of information would you like to give them? Is this more for errors? Is this just information? Hey, thanks a lot for that information. Or congratulations, you've now sorted your list. Or what type of information would you like to just present to the user? And maybe by extension, give them options. Say, hey, here's a little bit of information for you. Would you like to pick yes or no? Or would you just like to cancel this window? Give them those options. And then in turn, we can then include that inside of our macro and do something specific based on that input from the message box. Now we've got one example here with a great little project about sorting. We've used an input box and we've used the message box in there with logic using an if statement. But once again, where else could you use this at? Perhaps when somebody opens up, initially they open up a workbook, and maybe this workbook's got 100 different worksheets in here. And we can ask them as they open the workbook or hit a button, this macro runs and ask them, hey, which worksheet would you like to go to? They type in the name of the worksheet, hit OK, and we can have our macro direct our users to that worksheet. Maybe once they get to that worksheet, we can have a message box that pops up and says, hey, was this the correct worksheet you were looking for? Or maybe it's a message box that says, oh, I couldn't find that worksheet. Are you sure you spelled it right? Would you like to try again? We can prompt the users. Anytime you need to gather information, think of an input box. Anytime you want to supply information back to the user, think of a message box. So sit here for a moment, do a little bit of brainstorming, maybe whip out a piece of paper and a pencil, and jot down some ideas on how you can use input boxes and message boxes inside of your Excel experience. And do me a favor, open up the lecture environment here and jump into the discussion board and share these ideas with myself and with the rest of the students that are enrolled in this course. Give us some ideas as well. What are you thinking about? Spark some ideas of our own as well.